Good day, good night, Niha, Shalom, or back in the lab, and it's about that time. Welcome to CFR Network. Thank yourself for surviving the zombie apocalypse of 2020. And now we are in the Gregorian year of 2021. And let's see if we can make it through this one. I got another special guest. Trustfully, this you're gonna need to have your pen and papers handy for this conversation. I have a father, sorry, no, not a father, a husband, a writer, author, Micha Dank, author of three books, fourth book to be coming very shortly, Beneath the Veil, Sacred Stone, and The Secret Weapon. Welcome to the broadcast, Micha. How art thou?
Good. Thank you for having me.
You're very much welcome. You're very much welcome, sir. Very interesting character, based upon what I've ingested so far. Your books look very, very interesting, and I've only sort of really skimmed the surface so far. Before we get into the detail about yourself, how has 2020 now slash 2021, how have you been coping? How have you been surviving? How has life
Oh
on
man,
lockdown treated you?
I've just been doing podcasts just constantly. It's been great because I could do podcasts 5 days a week. So I've been doing, or even 7 days a week, to be honest. I've been doing just a ton of podcasts, um, getting my books out the door. I have a 6 book series. I have a 6 book deal with the publisher, and book 4 is coming out in 3 months. So we're just getting ready for that one, and they're all written, so they're just coming out every 3 months. But the first 3 are already out, which people are going to want to get after they hear this.
Most definitely. And in regards to the actual creativity that comes behind creating these books, what sort of time period, or are these already pretty much laid out in your heads or pre-written? I mean, what's that sort of process like?
So it's already been, they've all been written. They've all been written, and basically they all follow suit. One follows two, 2 follows 1, 3 follows 2. It's all one large story. And basically, the characters discover a lot about what I'm just going to share bits and pieces of with you.
Mm,
Uh,
okay, okay. I would kind of you may correct me on this. I would kind of I liken this to almost Sophia Stewart's work, The Matrix.
yes, a lot. It would be very similar to the Matrix. It would be more like Dan Brown's um, Da Vinci Code and
Hmm.
Angels and Demons.
Yes.
If you took the main character out and you put Neo from the Matrix in it.
Hmm. Yes, because there's just so many different layers. There's so many points of view or aspects upon the same view you look at, and depending on where you are within your growth periods, you're going to look at it in many different sort of lights or aspects of light. So it's it's like almost like aging wine. You'll read it once or you'll consume it once, and yeah, I think I've got it. And you read it again. Oh, I didn't get that part before, but now I understand based upon the experiences. Time has elapsed, etc., etc. Interactions.
Yes, that's exactly how it happens.
Mm, definitely. This is where we're living in. It's most definitely troubling times, but it's also much interesting times that we're living in currently. And with your work and others' work, because again, it's all about the stages of life of through mental, spiritual development. Where are we at this point? Are we even going to be looking on the periphery for this type of information that may help us at this right moment? or will it take 2 or 3 years before this information to stumble across, and then, oh, this has been out for this amount of time. Why didn't I not know about this information?
Right.
Yeah, everything has its reason, and everything it's for its season. So, Michael, if we can jump into the DeLorean, and if we can go way back in time, because I want to try and encapsulate how we got on this journey to create the content that you've created. Well, the series of books. Where do we want to start?
It's about 9 years ago. I was living in Boston. I'm from Long Island, New York, and I'm back in Long Island, New York now. But I had moved to Boston with with an ex who I'm no longer with, and basically when we were out there, we didn't really have any new friends yet. So basically, we spent a lot of time going out to eat the dinner and working and just basically going on the iPad and going down the rabbit hole. That's what I did, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And I came across two guys. One was Jordan Maxwell.
Yes.
And one was Santos Bonocci, who talked deeply about astrotheology, and it got me hooked to the point where I became obsessed, and I started studying it for about 6 months to a year. And then I eventually realized, I said, I have to put this in a book. But then instead of putting it in a book, what I did was I wrote everything down, and I decided to make it a fiction book instead of a nonfiction book.
Mm-hmm.
Just because it's easier to transmit information through fiction. So what I did was I created one book, and then I pitched it to my friends. I showed it to them, and they said, no, we want to know more. We want to know more about the stories. You have to keep writing, keep going. So one turned into a trilogy, and the trilogy turned into 6. And that's basically how I got to where I am right now.
Mm. Did you also look at any work from Michael Tazarian?
Yes, I have, briefly. Most of the stuff that I write about or I talk about is kind of, we all in astrotheology, we all have the shared stuff, like the signs behind the zodiac, like
Mm-hmm.
all the stories behind the zodiac. We all share that. But what I do mostly is, this is mostly my work on astrotheology that we do, as opposed to me just rehashing what other people say.
Indeed, which can be unfortunately very easily done. You have to almost, well, not almost, use them as a foundation to, okay, you've opened my eyes and mind to that element and that inner standing, let's say, of that. Where else can this lead to? What else do I need to be studying to further the information? Because as we know, knowledge is infinite. So it's, we may think at a certain age or a certain point in our life that, oh, we've received this information, that's the be all and end all. But no.
Right.
There's still a long journey to go.
Mm-hmm.
So you say you briefly looked at Michael Tazarian's work. How would you sort of rate him in regards to against the pioneer himself, Mr. Maxwell Jordan?
Well, Jordan's the best, to be honest. Jordan is the best. He's sort of an OG. I don't know why he didn't commercially capitalize on what he has to try and get it out to the masses, which is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get this out to the masses. That's why I wrote a book series. He doesn't seem to do that. He just gives little lectures, and he kind of stays under the radar. Not sure why.
That may be down to the experience he had in I think it was the mid-thousands, where I think he was in business with somebody that, trustfully, the listeners may be able to correct me, but he may have been in business with somebody, and they were producing, obviously, materials, etc., and that person basically did the dirty on him and took the rights to the website and stuff. So and kept on producing and well, fulfilling orders based upon people thinking that was Jordan Maxwell, and he had nothing to do with that entity. So I think he went like really quiet for a period of time before, and tried legal ways to remedy the situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he
Right.
potentially just maybe jilted from that, but I'm not Jordan.
Well, he's pushing it right now. He's got to be like 80, 90.
Very close to it. If not, he's been at it for some time.
Since the 50s, if I believe I'm right.
I thought, yeah, 50s, 60s, yeah. Um, he's very he was one of the, again, you've got your Alex Jones, you always kind of mention him, part of the awakening, Jordan Maxwell, your David Ikes, your Michael Tazarians. Those were the main people who kind of gave you an alternative idea of what was actually going on and what could be going on. And from there, you go down your myriad of different sort of rabbit holes.
Right.
So where do you want to start in regards to some of these astrotheological keys that you've been able to unlock doors to?
Well, it's basically, if you're talking about astrotheology in the Bible, there's some basic questions that you could ask. You could say, hey, how was Jesus able to heal the blind? How did he walk on water? How did he turn water into wine? Why did he have 12 disciples? Why was he betrayed with a kiss by Judas? Why was he dead for 3 days? Why is his birthday on December 25th? This is all astrology. And we're going to get to it. But I think the best way to start is just to basically go through the 12 signs real quick.
Mm-hmm.
So the first sign is Aquarius, which is represented by the man in the water picture. Pisces is the sign of two fish in the water. Aries is the ram. In Aries, you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day, 12-hour night. It's also the Passover, or the passing over of the sun over the equator and back on its way to its height in the summer solstice. In Christianity, the passing over is changed and called the resurrection of God's son. And it's why the Jews smear the lamb's blood on the door, the lamb, the ram, because they're the people of Aries. It's why they blow the ram's horn to the sky. It's because they're the people of Aries. Taurus is the bull. And you have to remember is that basically when these were all being figured out, these signs, they didn't have any clocks or any of that kind of smartwatches or calendars. They had maybe like a sundial. And
Yes.
then they basically just looked at the sun in the sky. And then they basically just got to look at the stars, and they had to know when winter was coming. They had to know when to plant. They had to know when to harvest. They had to know all this stuff without calendars. So basically, when you see Taurus in the sky, when you see the bull in the sky, you know, as above, so below. You put the plow on the bull, and then you plow for the rest of the year. Now, the next sign is Gemini, which is the twins. That's Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy, which is the story of Achilles. And then the next
Famously
sign,
made famous in the movie Face Off.
yes, you heard that from me, right?
No, listen. As soon as you brought that up, because I'm very familiar with that zodiacal sign, because I know a little bit about it. So I took that correlation straight away, and then I heard the conversation unfold, and you said, "Yeah, Face Off." So yes,
Yeah,
excellent film, and the whole film portrayed exactly, that war in the heavens of sorts.
right, exactly. So basically, in the movie Face Off, which is the for your older audience, it's the John Travolta and Nicolas Cage movie.
Yes.
Nicolas Cage's character and his brother's character were named Castor and Pollux Troy. And John Travolta's character was named Sean Archer. Well, the Archer is Gemini's opposing sign, Sagittarius, with the bow and the arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So basically, they sneak that astrology in there. And then the next sign is Cancer, is the crab, and it's the sideways moving creature. So just as the sun rises a degree on its axis, starting on December 25th. So what happens is on December 25th, the sun rises a degree. And then every single day, it rises an additional degree on its axis until it hits June 21st. And then for 3 days, it rises to the same degree because it moves sideways. That's why Cancer, the crab, moves sideways. And then on June 25th, it lowers a degree and then basically continues to lower a degree until it gets to December 21st, where it stops for 3 days again. and it rises to its lowest point for 3 days. And then on December 25th, the birth of Christ, it rises an additional degree. It's also why they said God's sun was dead for 3 days, because the sun was literally dead for 3 days. It wasn't moving.
Yes, with the way the Roman Catholic and how modern day Christianity is, that is perfect. That lines up perfectly exactly with what you're saying. Biblically, there was no date for when the character Jesus or Yeshua or Isus was born, and if it was, according to theory, it wouldn't have been around the 25th of December in the cold of the dead cold of East Africa / Israel. In reality, if these characters are real, the dates don't necessarily marry up, but indeed with the traditions and what we've been taught, Jesus was born on the 25th, and that does tie in perfectly with what you're saying.
Exactly. So the next sign is Leo, which is the king, and the ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So when Jesus is in his kingdom, or when the sun is in his glory, the God's son is in his glory, that's when the sun is metaphorically in Leo. So Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. So you remember before when I said in Taurus you plant? Okay, in Virgo's the woman with the wheat stalk. So you gather the wheat in Virgo. The virgins would go out and cultivate the wheat. So there's the bread. And Libra is the justice, which is the scales, the balance, the just one. And the reason it's justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into its death in winter. The Jews always celebrate the new year around the fall equinox, and also, so to speak, Libra is also wine season. September, October is wine season. So you plant the grapes in Taurus, you plant the seeds in Taurus, and you get the grapes then. And then you make the wine in Libra. So Virgo, you get the bread. Libra, you get the wine. So that's the bread and the wine. Those are the symbols of Christianity.
It's permeated for centuries. And when you peel back the layers, there is something always behind these symbols and signs and these rituals and acts that, as I've alluded to many times before, the traditions of men, these are all related to the traditions of men, and they've been perverted, and the true essence and the meaning of what we're actually doing. And as you're highlighting, it's a calendar. It's a calendar, a sign in the sky for the times. Not necessarily for you to anthropomorphize the characters and stuff, and yeah, it's an interesting game. Why do you think that they've played the game and taken away the true meaning of it? Is it to take people's ultimate power away?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. That is literally what it is. That's what it is. It's to take away the sacred knowledge and replace it with the literal Bible, instead of realizing that it's an astrology book, instead of realizing that it has a tarot component to it. And I'm going to go into some examples of the astrology in it. I just want to finish getting through the signs real quick. Okay, so next is Scorpio, which is the scorpion, and he's known as the betrayer. So when a scorpion bites you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like two lips. That's where the mafia has the kiss of death from. That's where they get it from. And it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with a kiss, because Judas is Scorpio. That's why he kissed him, because Judas is Scorpio and Jesus is the son of God, the sun. And so the sun is judged in Libra and betrayed in Scorpio, and finally it dies in Sagittarius. That's where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun to inflict further punishment on the sun, and the sun dies. In the Bible, it's actually translated to a spear, which goes into the side of God's son. But we'll get back to that later, and I'll show you the passage where it's translated to that. But Capricorn is the goat, and that's the 12 signs. So I could start going into some easily decodable ones if you'd like.
Yeah.
Unless you have something to say.
No, go into it. Let's keep it simple, stupid, as we like to do. Let's start it off slow, and then we can work it up.
Okay. So have you heard of the phrase pride comes before the fall?
Yes.
Okay, so can you how would your Christian listeners describe that?
Well, the listenership is very vast. I wouldn't say it's predominantly Christian or
Well, no, I
religious.
didn't mean your Christian audience. I meant your Christian audience, the ones that are.
Oh, I see. As literal as the words come out, everything's literal. They're not going to look anything deep into it.
Right. So, what do you think pride comes before the fall means? Can you describe that for me?
Pride before the fall, being prideful, being stuck in your own way, can lead to your demise ultimately.
Exactly. But what is a group of lions called?
A pride.
A group of lions is called a pride.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Leo is the lion, and that's July, August. That comes before the fall. So it's these kind of double meanings that the Bible is chocked full of, where you think you can read it one straightaway way, but it has a hidden meaning.
Esoteric, yes. There's so much because there is actually no. Continue before I go into that.
It's fine. In the book of Micah, he predicts that a savior will come from the town called Bethlehem. Now, Bethlehem in Hebrew is two words. It's bet, which means house, and lechem, which means bread. So it's house of bread. And I already told you that Virgo, virgin, with the wheat stalk, is the house of bread. So the savior will come from a virgin. You see how that's in there?
It plays almost. It's almost like a play, a very well scripted play, and people are taking portions of this play out and renaming the characters and changing what they were doing, the times and the places, and it's still the basic story, but they're totally, as we would say now in the 21s, they're remixing it totally.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So basically, if you want to go over the nicknames for God, for Jesus, because he has a bunch. Capricorn is the goat. He's known as the scapegoat of Israel. The man sign, the man with the water pitcher, is the son of man. The fisherman of men is Pisces, the two fish.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why he feeds the masses with the two fish. It's also why Christians have the Jesus fish on the car, because it goes back to Pisces. They're the people of Pisces. He's the Lamb of God, or the Ram in Aries. He's the Lion of Judah, also known as Leo. And the lady holding the wheat stalk, he's born of a virgin. Everybody knows that. And he's called the bread of life. Libra is the scales of justice. He's known as the just one. He's betrayed in Scorpio. He dies in Sagittarius. And it's also why he's worshipped on the Sunday. The sun day.
Yeah, sun, rather than the actual Sabbath or Shabbat, which would be Friday through to Saturday.
Right.
Yeah, it's it's interesting, as I say. It's very interesting. To get your mind around it, I think that's the biggest challenge for people to, because it's the book is a lot bigger than what people think it is.
Right.
A lot bigger. I mean, there are people who can interpret or look at the, for instance, Genesis, Bereshith. You can look at that and go through the stages of the creation, 124 to 26, and you can actually break that down to the actual development of the fall of your spiritual self down to the three-dimensional realm, and we can look at the journey of your spiritual body or spiritual self having a three-dimensional experience without the full knowledge of what actually happened. So a little bit of amnesia sorts, and going through the journey to gain your higher self back, to bring you back to where you were initially.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what do you think so far? Do you think, I mean, these interpretations, do they make sense? Do they sound?
Oh yeah, no, definitely. I've I've heard many different interpretations, and this is going back to the astrotheological element of it, i.e., the signs which you've broken down. It's you can't really deny. You can't deny what I mean.
Right.
If we look at nature, take away language, take away religion, and all the rest of it, that's what people in their most primitive form do, is they look outside of their shelter and see exactly what's going on. You know, that they based upon that and based upon years of generation or generations or for a period of time, they know through certain periods, through certain stars or signs within the sky, that certain things can happen. Planting, harvesting, reaping, rainy seasons potentially where you are in depending on where you are in on the plane. So
Right.
yes.
Absolutely. That's exactly what they do. Only I would pose that it was much longer than just generations. People have been staring at the stars for thousands of years.
Well, let me ask you a question in regards to that then, because depending on what chain of thought you're on, what the oldest Homo sapiens sapien is what is how old? 20,
I'm not entirely sure.
I'm sure it's 20 something thousand years or something, and then we go back to the Homo habilis, which is and no disrespect to anybody, but that's not a human being, that's a monkey. And they're saying that's like millions of years old.
Yeah, that's true.
But my question is, we always have the question as per what we're doing now and trying to come up to some answers, is how we come up with these astronomical figures in regards to, I mean, how many different versions of carbon dating are we on now? We're on carbon 15 or 16 now or something, maybe?
I thought we were still on 14.
We're
So the
still on
thing
14.
about carbon dating is that, and a lot of young earthers will say this, is that carbon dating is inaccurate, and that actually is true. But it's not true the way they see it. Carbon dating is actually, the way we do it now, is accurate up to 50,000 years.
Yeah, I've heard
But
that.
anything further than that, when you're talking in the 100,000 years or you're talking the millions of years, it's not as accurate. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, obviously, I'm not a geologist or a scientist in that respect. What are the markers to be able to say we're looking at this marker, which equals a million years ago? I mean, like, because you know, I know science, is done to answer questions which are sometimes unanswerable. But like, if no one was there at a million years old or a million years ago, or has a item which is guaranteed, i.e., there's some kind of
Right.
marking on to say this is the year that we did this kind of thing.
Right.
Is this
Oh,
just
I
not
see what you're
supposition?
saying. Well, no, because the basis of carbon 14 is half life.
Mm-hmm.
So you see how you can check something's half life.
Okay.
So basically, they base it off of the half life, which is how they base all medications now. Which is how they base drugs, anything that you ingest in your system, vitamins. It's all
Mm-hmm.
half life.
Okay.
So that's how they do it with carbon, because we're carbon based.
Indeed,
You know,
carbon-based beings.
that's where 666 comes from. They
Yeah.
say it's the mark of the human. It's not the mark of the beast. It's the mark of the human. It's 6 carbons, 6 protons, 6 electrons.
Electrons, yes, indeed. I learned that back in 2002. I was so shocked when I came across that information. It was like, well, why would it be? And this is another thing which should be highlighted. The book, the Holy Bible, has been translated and transliterated from Hebraic text and
Right.
Grecian text,
Right.
but mainly the New Testament, the Gospels, etc. So, in as we know, we're both conversing in English, American English, and English language as a language. I mean, we've got as I've identified American English. We've got Old English, we've got Mid English. But when we look at the actual creation of English, it's a hodgepodge of Latin, Vulgar, and Spanish words and French words and all types of different things.
Right.
The point being is, once it was translated and transliterated, the meanings, the words have been totally taken away from what the actual original text was speaking about. So we're talking tertiary information. We're not talking or reading from the root of how it was written. So that's another
Right.
spell.
Well, the thing about that is that you end up with slight English variation translation issues. In the book of in the Ten Commandments, which was initially, first of all, the Ten Commandments comes from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, chapter 125. It's called the 12 Negative Confessions. That's where it comes from. Secondly, in the King James Bible, it says thou shalt not kill. But in the Hebrew, the word is not actually kill; it's murder, and those mean two different things. Yeah,
very much so, very much so. The Egyptian book by, what is it? It's popularly known as the book by the Book of the Dead, but there's another. It's book by light or coming forth by light or something like that.
Yes.
It makes you really want to question pretty much everything you've been taught in regards to religiosity, religion, and its various sects, because there's a bigger picture, and as you're highlighting and as we're moving forward, you're painting a picture of this massive control system playing these games to, as you say, to draw the power away from us, the people.
Yes, that's what it always is.
From the days of the kings and queens and the sheriff coming to, I want the taxes. It's time to pay the taxes. And then you had the Robin Hoods who were saying, "Nah, I don't think this is right." There's always one outlaw who will say, I see that there's something greater than what we're doing now, and seeing the injustice and actually trying to make a change.
Right.
And that's why it's important that we're in this time now where we can experience, we can converse, we can, as you've done, you've written soon to be 4 published books.
Well, I've written 6. They're just waiting to come out.
Yes. Which are giving people the opportunity to be able to question even deeper to what they thought was their their sense of normality. And that's what we have to do on a daily basis. We have to question these things. And sometimes it's about having these conversations. If you can't, some people aren't readers, some people want to have the audio book, but sometimes just by having this conversation might spur someone to say, you know what, I need to have a read of that. I need to actually, challenge myself.
I can give you some Bible quotes that we can just basically rip into.
Okay.
This one is very obvious. Let's see if you could pick out how many there are. This is Deuteronomy 32. He says he gave them honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky ground. He gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. He gave them lambs and goats. They had the best rams from Bashan and the finest wheat. They drank the best wine made from the juice of red grapes. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. Do you see how many signs are just in that one passage? Now, the ones you haven't heard of, he gives honey from the cliffs and olive oil from the rocky ground. So olive season is also in Libra. So actually it's in Cancer too. So the interesting thing too is that you get honey from the cliffs. Basically, there's in the sign of Cancer, there's a group of stars together called the Beehive Cluster. It's an asterism, and it's just a group of stars that are basically together. And the beehives, that's where you get the honey from.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He gave people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. Well, that comes from the Milky Way galaxy.
Sorry, Michael. So what's the correlation between the cluster of stars and the
well, the stars are called the Beehive Cluster, and he said he gave them honey from the cliffs. So bees to honey.
Okay.
And then he gave his people butter from the herd and milk from the flock. That's both milk based. So that's the Milky Way galaxy, which is in, which its middle is in Sagittarius. So Cancer is the honey, and the Milky Way is in Sagittarius. So from Cancer to Sagittarius is the milk and the honey, the land of the milk and honey.
I'm getting it. Yes.
They had the best rams. They had the best rams from Bashan, so that's Aries, and the finest wheat. That's Virgo. But Jeshurun became fat and kicked like a bull. That's Taurus. Then that's the Old Testament. But if you go into Revelation 4:7 says the first living creature was like a lion, the second was like an ox, the third had the face like a man, and the fourth was like a flying eagle. So what you have to understand is that the Scorpio is the belly moving creature. It crawls on its belly. It's the lowest form of life. But in astrology, its evolved form is the eagle. And then from the eagle, it can evolve one more time, and it becomes the phoenix, which is the story of Jesus, which basically, it lives, it goes through its thing, and then it dies, and then it's reborn from its ashes. Okay. So the flying eagle is actually Scorpio. So the first is like a lion, that's Leo. The second was like an ox, that's Taurus. The third had a face like a man, that's the sign of Aquarius, the man sign. And the fourth was like a flying eagle, that's Scorpio. These four signs, when you put them on the zodiac wheel, they form an X. Okay, a perfect X. And it also turns out that these happen to be the four fixed signs of the zodiac. You have the mutable signs, you have the fixed signs. That's a little deeper into astrology than we're going to get into, but the people who know astrology know what I'm talking about. So there's basically that.
Your natal charts and all of that. It's very, very deep. Going back to the 12 signs of the zodiac.
Yeah.
Pre-Roman times, Deca, that's 10, right?
Yes.
So how do we get from 10
that
10
changed
months?
that changed from the Caesarean calendar to the Gregorian calendar. We actually lost 8 years, which is why they say that the Mayan calendar, the end of the Mayan calendar, was in 2012, and it actually was in 2020. So there's a bit of
Wasn't that the Julian calendar? The Julian calendar.
The Julian calendar. I'm sorry.
Yes,
the Julian calendar.
Wow. So based upon that, so this is the question I have. Based upon the changing of calendars, in the Julian calendar, what would the horoscopes look like then?
It was slightly different. If you're talking a while back, if you go back to the Egyptian times, for starters, the crab in Cancer was not a crab; it was a beetle. It was a scarab.
Scarab,
okay?
yes.
And the Leo, the lion, was actually a sphinx. So there were slight variations to it, but not too many.
Okay. And would you know how they reconciled the days? Was it still 365?
I don't recall, to be honest with you.
No problem.
Because it's different, because the Ethiopians go back that far, and they have 13 months of 30 days and 1 month of 5 days. The Jewish calendar has 12 months, and like we have a leap day every 4 years, the Jewish calendar has a leap month every 4 years. So everything is all out of whack, to be honest with you.
A leap month?
They do.
So Can you elaborate any more on that? So how would that work
It's
then?
called Adar Shani, which basically means Adar 2. So it's basically calling it like December, like second round of December.
So in essence they repeat one of the months like that, December.
Yes. Hmm.
I love it. You learn something new every day. If you're not learning something new every day, you're not living. That's the motto.
Yes.
Well,
Yes, I agree.
that is yeah. That's one for the memory banks. That is okay. I'm gonna do some more research into that because I mean we lost 8 years with the switch from Julian to Gregorian.
We did.
We've got
But it tells you that because Deca is 10, Nov is 9,
yeah.
Oct is 8. Oct is 8, Sept is 7. In fact, this all goes back to astrology because the first month is Aries. So the
Mm,
first month is March.
I was, yeah. I like the way this conversation's flowing because that was what I was going to get into when you was doing the breakdown of the horoscopes because that is the true new year. Hence, we've got this silly custom. I don't know how big it is in America, but and to be fair, it's not that big here anymore in the UK. But April Fools used to be, pretty big. And
Yeah.
I'm thinking that surely has some connection to the forgetting. That was a way to ridicule people to say, look, look, it's not the new year now. We're doing a new year
Mhm.
in January now. So every new year or around this period, we're going to make it April Fools and ridicule the people who are still celebrating the new year in this time.
Yep.
Because otherwise, when why else would they, why else would it be April Damn Fool Day?
I used to know this. I just can't recall it for some reason.
Also,
I'm
there is some kind
sorry.
of good. So there is some kind of story to why there is an April Fools.
Right.
Yeah, again, traditions of men. You gotta love it. You've gotta love it. And us being the batteries, the sheeple, the what other word? The crying and susceptible beings that the majority of us are. We'll just accept it. They put it out there, and we just gobble it up, and we just run with the punches
Right.
until we get a critical, mass that's 46% of people, kind of singing off the same hymn sheet, looking at some of this alternative information. That's when we can really affect
Hmm.
some kind of change. What do you think about that, Micah?
Not really sure how I feel about that, to be honest with you. Um, I don't know. I have to think about that. Come back to me on that.
All good, all good. So pick up where you was with you was going through the references biblically wise to the astronomy, and you went down through from Old Testament, and then you went to New Testament Revelation.
Yes. All right. So we're going to go back into Revelation 12. Okay.
Hmm.
So a great sign. I'm going to paraphrase this one. Okay.
Okay.
A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet. Then another sign appeared in heaven, an enormous red dragon. Its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to earth. Are you familiar with the woman and the dragon from Revelations?
The harlots.
No, the woman with the dragon.
Oh yes, yes. Sorry, yes.
Okay, so a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun. So if it's a woman, that's Virgo. And
Berg.
if she's clothed with the sun, that's the sun in Virgo. If the moon is under her feet, if the sun is in Virgo, then the moon is directly under it. Okay. Then an enormous red dragon came out. Okay. Have you heard of the constellation Draco?
Draco's constellation. Yes, yes.
Draco's the dragon. Yes.
Mhm.
And its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky. That's poetry. Okay. The tail of the constellation Draco goes from Aries to Sagittarius. That's 4 signs. That's a third of the stars.
This is yeah. And what was this? What chapter and verse was this again? Sorry.
This is, you can look this up. You can follow along with the Bible. It's Revelation 12.
12. Okay.
I can give you another Old Testament. I could do this all day. I could just bounce back and forth. I'm going to read you. Are you familiar with the book of Job?
Job. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Can you explain to your audience real quick just the backstory behind who Job was and what the deal was?
Job was a righteous man and was favored in the eyes of the Most High. And Shaitan, was he Shaitan or the devil? One of the
Well,
two.
in Hebrew, the word shaitan, which is Satan, means adversary. So it
Exactly.
doesn't technically mean the evil, but whatever. We'll let that go. So
Yes.
anyway, so Satan.
So
Yes.
they had a conversation, and basically, to cut a long story short, he's the Most High said, look, Job's cool. He's obedient. You can do whatever, and he's still going to remain obedient. And he went through a lot of trials and tribulations, to say the least.
Right. Right. So, okay. So what I'm going to read you right now is God's response to Job. Okay.
Mhm.
So it starts like this, Job 38:32. He says, can you lead forth the Mazzaroth? Well, right there, it's obvious. The Mazzaroth in Hebrew literally translates to the zodiac. So it's, can you lead forth the zodiac? Do you know the zodiac? Over time, Mazzaroth becomes Mazalot. And over time, that becomes, and I mean, like a long time ago, that becomes Mazel Tov. And Mazel Tov, which everyone knows, means good fortune from the stars. Okay.
I've heard the phrase, but I never knew what it actually meant. So, okay, that's another new one to the
And
memory banks.
that goes back to Mazzaroth, which goes back to the book of Job. So the Lord's challenge to Job, he says, can you bind the chains of the Pleiades? Can you loosen Orion's belt? So that's obvious, right?
And as soon as I hear that, I picture Men in Black with the little cats. But continue.
All right. Then he says, can you bring forth the constellation in their seasons or lead out the bear with its cubs? The constellations are the zodiac above, and the bear and its cubs are Ursa Major, the Great Bear, and Ursa Minor, which is part of the Big Dipper. Who can tip over the water jars of heavens? That's Aquarius. Do you hunt the prey for the lioness and satisfy the hunger of the lions? That's Leo. Who provides food for the raven? The constellation Corvus, which means raven, was bordering on Virgo. Do you watch where the doe bears her fawn? Mriga, M-R-I-G-A, means deer, and it's located in Orion. Who let the wild donkeys go free? That's Acellus borealis, which means donkey, and is located in Cancer. Will the wild ox consent to serve you? That's Taurus. The wings of the ostrich flap joyfully. That's Lambda Achille in Latin, or Al Thaliman, which means two ostriches in Arabic. And then it was passed down. Do you give the horse its strength? It laughs at fear, afraid of nothing. It does not shy away from the sword. The quiver rattles against its side along with the flashing spear and lance. That's Sagittarius with the bow and arrow. And remember earlier where I told you that they equated the bow and arrow with the flashing spear?
Mhm.
This is where they do that right there, along with the flashing spear and lance. There's two important murders you have to understand in the Bible. You have the first murder, which is Cain and Abel. And in Hebrew, the word Cain literally means spear. And then the second most important murder in the Bible is Jesus, and he is killed with this spear to his side.
Yeah.
So spear has a very significant part in the Bible. Anyway, does the eagle soar at your command and build its nest on high? That's Aquila, which is the Latin name for eagle and is a constellation a few degrees above the celestial equator. Finally, he says, can you pull in Leviathan with a fish hook? That's Pisces. So his entire challenge back to Job was, do you know where all these stars are? And it's all hidden.
So that was was okay. So based upon the text, this is a two-answer question. Based upon the text, what was Job's response to be?
I don't remember Job's response, to be honest with you. I don't, but
Um,
he basically apologizes.
mhm.
But it's basically God. It's basically God in secret, like just telling you, like, do you think that God's just basically like, where were you when I created the donkeys? Where were you when I did this? But in reality, all these animals, all these signs are stars in the zodiac. So initially, where he says, "Can you lead forth the Mazzaroth?" the whole thing is about the Mazzaroth.
The whole procession's in the sky.
Mm-hmm. It's the whole thing.
Mm. So as you've been doing this study and research over this 9-year period, where do you stand now spiritually?
I believe in what's called a prime creator. I believe that there was a creative energy that started everything.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know more than that, and I don't care to.
Mm-hmm.
I just know that there's a loving energy in the galaxy,
Yes.
and I believe that that's more powerful than evil. And I think that the evil people, the New World Order, so to speak, know, and their time is coming up. We're in the age of Aquarius right now, which everybody's supposed to be getting more spiritual.
Indeed.
Everybody knows that. Like your mother knows that. You know what I'm saying? Everybody knows that Aquarius means we're going to get more spiritual.
The awakening. But do you think that the powers that should most definitely not be, do you think that because it's so widely known of sorts, and there are people trying to tip the scales back into righteousness, that
Mm-hmm.
they've maybe hijacked this quote unquote awakening into something else? Because
Of course, they have. Absolutely. Absolutely. The rabbit hole never ends. Absolutely. But here's the thing. Let me give you an example. During the age of Taurus, okay,
Mhm.
which was the age that the Egyptians ruled. And you can look at like hieroglyphs on their wall. They had like countless bulls with the sun between its horns. I mean, they can't make it any more obvious that the sun was in Taurus. They can't make it any more obvious. So
I
they were
never
the people of,
I never
yeah,
thought about what that hieroglyph or metuneta symbol meant, to be fair, but yes, yeah, it makes perfect sense.
absolutely. Look, when you realize that everything goes back to astrology, it opens up everything. It really does. So they're the people of Taurus. So basically, what happened is then the Jewish people come up in the time of Aries, right? They blow the ram's horn for the sky. They have the sacrifice of the
Hmm.
lamb.
Hmm.
They do all that, and then they start to fade, just like the Egyptians faded after their sign was done. And Christians come up, and Christianity. You have Pisces, you have the two fish, you have the Jesus fish, you have Jesus feeding the masses with two fish. Everything that goes with Christianity. And then basically what happens is they're done. So now by law, the Christians should start to fade and
So,
a new religion should come up. But here's the thing, it's kind of hard to have a new religion when we have like podcasts and everybody could just share information so freely,
hmm,
right? It,
hmm,
it would be kind of hard to start an insurrection because all religions were started with wars. That wars and pillaging and
yeah,
sharing information that way with bloodshed.
hmm.
But the truth of the matter is that, in this new age right now, I think because it's going to be kind of hard to create a new religion, I think this religion is going to be merging with machines.
Transhumanism.
Yep. I think that's the new religion that they're trying to push.
Yeah, okay, sorry. Yes, I would 100% agree. Where there's no, in essence, there's no self. It's a collective. It's almost like the Borg frame of mind, um,
Yep.
with unlimited. And the trade-off for that is, pardon self, is the unlimited capability of never dying, of never
Yep.
aging, and that Highlander kind of lifestyle from the 80s.
Yeah.
We want to live forever. And listen, to everybody out there, I'm pretty sure Micah would appreciate this. We love life, this three-dimensional world, but at some point, we have to exit the three-dimensional realm that we're living in. That doesn't necessarily mean that the life force, the spirit, the car, however you want to phrase it, which powers this said vehicle,
Right.
disappears. Energy does not dissipate, it doesn't die.
And everything is already recorded in the Akashic records. Everything that is will be, can be. So it's really a moot point trying to like keep somebody alive through
Yes.
like that's the thing about Elon Musk. He went on Joe Rogan, right? I don't know if you heard that one. And
Yeah.
he literally said, I tried to warn people about this new age of technology. I tried to warn people about this. It was futile,
Yeah.
but I tried to warn people about this. And then what did he do? He keeps doing what
Neuralink.
he's doing. He keeps doing exactly. He warns people about it, and then he keeps doing it. He basically sold his soul. Now he's the richest man in the world. Go figure.
And how did that take place so quickly over this period? Because it was Bezos originally, and then all of a sudden, the report comes out that he's overtaken him. Is this surely down to Tesla sales?
No, it's not that. Well, I don't know how it happened, but look, no one's gonna say nobody works harder than Elon Musk. Okay, he puts in like 100 hours a week. Nobody's gonna say anybody works harder than Elon Musk. But to come out on Rogan and just to say, we've got to take a step back from machines, and then just put your foot on the gas and do that. That's
It's you speak is what it is.
Right.
George Orwellian stuff. It's like, I mean, what and it was real. When I watched that podcast, I was like, wow. I mean, I didn't really, and I knew a little bit about Elon, but it was interesting to hear him on there. He's a very interesting character.
Yeah, he's
And
a character, that's for sure.
Very much so. I would even go far to say that he's maybe not even a sentient life form. But that's another conversation. But as I said, I was very encouraged to hear what he said, and then he sends they did the little movie of him sending the car into his Tesla into space and all that kind of stuff. And then a few months later, we're talking about this Neuralink stuff and how exciting that technology is going to be.
Now they actually have a pig that has a brain chip in it.
My gosh. Well, look, in the 80s, we can go back to the 80s, and then we're putting flipping. What was one of the earliest things they were doing? They were putting transmitters. They were basically lobotomizing bulls to a certain point, and then they could press a button and stop them from charging. Have you seen that
Did they
footage?
really?
Oh,
Are you
yeah.
sure that wasn't classical conditioning?
No, you actually saw them digging into their damn brains and stuff. So whether this was just cleverly done, but you could see the operation and putting electrodes and stuff into the brain, specific brain parts of where the aggression part of, I guess, of the bull, and they were, bull was going straight at this guy. Flip of the button, stops dead in its tracks.
Wow.
So when stuff's made public, oh yeah, this is what we're doing. We've just,
we're 30 years behind. We're
exactly
30 years behind whatever is made public.
30 to 50 years, because in 84, whenever it was, 84, 86, when they sold that bloody ear onto that mouse, that poor mouse over here.
Yeah.
That wasn't anything new.
Right. Oh, we just have this random idea. I think South Park made fun of it, where they had this the guy's penis grow on him.
Wow. You might as well. You might as well. I mean, talking about animated adult entertainment. What about The Simpsons?
Oh my God, I can't even get into The Simpsons right now with everything they've predicted. The guy's a time traveler.
This is what I'm saying. Or he's seriously tapped in Matt Groening and whoever else, because, like,
well, it's not him at this point. But it's like a team that goes well beyond him.
Yes, indeed. Name in name only, but they are just so on the pulse from. I mean, I haven't watched anything new Simpson-wise, but all of this old, as 80, 89 upwards to like the mid-90s, all of this stuff is like literally Simpson versions of reality playing out in 2015.
Yep. I'll give you another example too. You remember in Superman how they had the Crystal Cave?
Oh shit, yes.
So have you heard? Do you know who Edgar Casey is?
I've heard the name, but
He was basically the sleeping prophet. He would basically put himself in hypnotic trance, read the Akashic records, and then give people readings. He said that He said that the Atlanteans, okay, they died because they overcharged the crystal and it blew the crystals and it blew them all up. So that's crystal technology from about 10,000 years ago. Recently, they've found a way, and it's my first book too. It's a plot line. I'm not going to give it away, but what they found a way to do was embed movies into crystals, because crystals have almost unlimited memory. You know, first of all, they vibrate. They're not solid. They're not liquid. They vibrate at a very high frequency. Number one. Number two, they can store a hell of a lot of information. And they recently stored some movies, and then they got it out of there. In fact, new computers down the road, I'm telling you, microchips are no longer they keep getting smaller and more powerful, but they're going to be crystal technology. You know, because the memory is there in these crystals. That's just outrageous. So we're only now recovering this information that both Edgar Casey talked about, and was it Plato that talked about Atlantis?
Yeah, Plato. Yeah.
So there's that.
Where do you think that?
Like I mentioned in the Superman movie, they tried to show you this stuff in the 70s. Mm-hmm. You know, in the 70s, he had the Cave of Crystals.
Yes. Where he was able to didn't he have like a video message from Joel? Again, a play on words again, J and then L, Elohim.
Yeah. It's interesting too. Is because as far as my work goes, I've completely decoded line for line the book of Matthew. I've decoded the book of Enoch. I've decoded the book of Revelation.
Whoa. The book of Enoch, that is a very heavy extra biblical book. That is, Micah.
Right. And maybe you have me back on and we'll just do Enoch.
Yes.
And I'll show you how it's just astrology. And I'll show you how the reason that it's not in the Bible. So it's in the Ethiopian Bible still. Everybody knows that. Mm-hmm. But it's not in the regular Bible, because when they had I think it was the Council of Nicaea, is when they pulled it out of it. I'm sorry?
It was either Council of Nicaea or Council of Trent is when they took it out.
Right. Exactly. Sorry, my bad. So when they removed it, the reason they removed it is because they openly talk about astrology in the book. Okay, whereas in this Bible, everything is hidden.
Very much so, and so much of it is hidden. When you have eyes to see and ears to hear, yeah, that's all good. So you know, you're getting a little bit more. But when you start to look at the astrology side of it as well, it opens up a whole nother quandary in your mind and another journey that you need to go on.
When I look at something that I can't understand, okay, I go, how can I tie this to astrology? And I always find a way. It's the constant. It's the one constant. And I'll tell you why it's the one constant. This is why it's so important. It's because if we had a catastrophic incident where basically we had to start from cave-dwelling humans again, mm-hmm. we had to rebuild all over again, astrology would be the first thing that we needed, okay? Yeah. Organized religion would be so far down the list. You know, it would be, how do I eat? How do I survive? Then it would be, how do I plant? Yeah. How do I know when it's going to rain? Mm-hmm. How do I know when winter's going to come? Yes. You'd have to start all over again. So that's why it's so important. You know, and they say as above, so below. And my book series is basically talking about how the elites who control everything out there manipulate astrology. We talked about the movie Face Off. Mm-hmm. But do you remember when 9/11 happened?
Oh yes, of course. Who can not? That was the awakening moment for many people. Right. 9/11 and post 9/11.
Right. Well, they basically they made it a point to tell you. I can't tell you how many stories there were about this. They told you that one dog died. Okay. Do you remember the dog's name?
I don't actually.
It was Sirius.
Oh my
the dog, like the dog.
Serious stuff. Yeah. Oh gosh.
I'm serious.
He would have been even crazier if he was called Sirius A or Sirius B.
But yeah, they sneak this stuff in there constantly. It's called Revelation of the Method, is what it's called. It's called Revelation of the Method. And you mentioned Alex Jones before. He talks about it. I don't know if you're familiar with David Wilcock, but he talks about it too. Revelation of the Method basically says is that the elites could do whatever they want as long as they show you what they're going to do.
Yes.
They have to. Their rules are they have to show you.
And whether that means in movies, whether that means in sitcoms, cartoons, music, any form of media, even in print media, they will blatantly say it, they'll put it out there, and people will just like, okay, and they'll just read past it. Oh, they're gonna kill us in the next 5 years. All right then. Hey.
And the reason behind that is the reason that they have to do that is because they're bound under this law that says if people are dumb enough to let it happen, then let it be so. That's why they say the word amen. Amen in Hebrew translates to let it be so. However, amen, if you go back further to the Egyptian times, the reason you say amen is because you're actually giving praise to Amun Ra.
Amun, yeah, Amun.
Amun Ra.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where that goes, but they mistranslate it into Hebrew.
So are you proposing that that Kemet, aka Egypt, and the hieroglyphs, aka the Metuneta, are older than the biblical text?
100%. 100%. Well, which Bible? Are you talking about the Egyptian Bible? You're talking about the proper Bible, right?
Yes, the Catholic Christianic Bible, yes.
Right. No, absolutely.
Yeah, because it was only
if you look at the first book is the creation, and then the second book is Exodus, and Exodus talks about literally leaving Egypt.
Yeah.
So it didn't talk about anything about Egypt. You have the story of Moses, going down the river, and then this, that, and the other. It's just.
And also, if you go when you're going back to the start, Genesis, Bereshit, first chapter, it talks about the let us create man in our own image, let him have dominion over the earth. And then we jump down a little bit further to 26, and it's become not a plural Elohim, let us, let me not make, but yet create. So based upon that, there are people who say that there were two creation stories within Genesis, Bereshit.
There were more than two creation stories. God has 3 out of his 10 commandments telling you not to worship another God. Mm-hmm. And in fact, Abraham, they talk about Abraham being the first monotheistic person. First of all, Abraham, okay, in the Torah goes back to Egypt. I mean, it goes back to Hindu. Abraham or Abram in Hebrew. Abram or Brahm, and Sarah is Sarah. So Brahma and Saraswati. So it goes back to there. Also in Hebrew, this is another double entendre. The second one is Abraham actually means 2 words in Hebrew. Abram. Abba, which means father, and Ram, which means ram. So Father Ram, they're the people of Aries, the ram. So the god of Ram. And thirdly, Abraham was not the first one to worship monotheism. Okay, that goes back to Nefertiti. Nefertiti was worshiping one god back in the Egyptian times.
Wasn't it Akhenaten? Akhenaten was the first monotheistic worshipper of the sun.
Was it Akhenaten or was it? I'm pretty sure it was Nefertiti. I might be wrong though. We can look into that.
Yes, definitely. One of the two, Nefertiti or Akhenaten. Who was in the 3 presidents ago, there was an uncanny resemblance to President Barack Hussein Obama and a statue of Akhenaten. Did you recall that?
Right. I do. That was I'm telling you, there's nothing new under the sun, man. When they say there's nothing new under the sun, like that is for damn sure.
Nothing. You are 100% correct. And when I used to hear that, I used to think, well, of course there is, because look, we've got computers now. Before, in the olden days, we didn't have computers.
Yeah, did you
Oh,
ever hear of the Antikythera mechanism that was recovered from
yes.
the Greek warship?
These,
Okay, that's an astrology device that shows you, it's a computer that
Mm,
registers the, it's insane.
the Baghdad
It's
battery,
insane. I'm sorry.
the Baghdad battery.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good 4,000 years.
There's within the complexes of some of the unearthed ruins, there is evidence, and especially in some of these pyramids, there are evidence of a light source in there.
Yeah, well, my second book, not to give anything away, is about what the pyramids actually were.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see your take on that. And
Right.
there's many people come with a lot of different hypotheses, some quite credible, in regards to energy sources and stuff, and specifically
Right.
where they are.
Well, more
Or
specifically to the capstones than anything.
which have been totally stripped of the semi-precious materials they were once encased.
Yep. They talk
That's
about the Kaaba in Mecca.
Mhm.
The Kaaba in Mecca, how they go around and they kiss it's a meteorite. Like, there's plenty of people out there that say that's not even real anymore. That's been like long sold off.
Yes, Babylonian moon deity worship. It's a tourist attraction ultimately
Yeah.
for
It's gonna
the.
be. I'm gonna be writing a book. My seventh book is gonna be about that.
There's so much. And I'm pretty sure you've seen. Is it the east side of it where they do the kiss and they're kissing that vagina?
Yes.
It's the symbolism is like. I mean, and also going back again, I'm pretty sure you'll know this. When Muhammad went into the temple after his revelation and smashed all of the 360 plus deities that they were worshipping, he left one statue, and many people like to forget what the statue was. It was Alat, the feminine deity, which then over time was masculinized into Allah.
Yeah, which is interesting too, because as far as the Jewish people go, they've dug up plenty of archaeology sites where basically they're finding these fertility gods, these little creations, these little fertility gods, that supposedly they're dating them to long after the time when it was supposed to be a monotheistic religion.
Oh.
In fact, they found a church in Israel called Megiddo. Okay, the not the church was called Megiddo. The town was called Megiddo. Okay.
Okay.
And the town was called Megiddo. And they basically they uncovered this church that was basically sitting under an active church. And so they dug this thing up, and then they found this giant mosaic in the middle of the church. This is 3rd century AD, so this is as close as it gets.
Is this a floor
Right?
mosaic you're talking about? The one on
It's
the
a
floor?
floor mosaic, and do you know what
Yes.
it was?
Go on, go on.
It was Pisces. It was the 2 fish.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And it's still in excellent condition, the majority of it.
Oh, it's pristine.
Mm.
It was even commissioned. They found out who commissioned it. I forget the guy's name. He commissioned it at the time that it was created, but it was definitely done on purpose.
Mm.
Because the early Christians, do you remember the early Christians were also known as Helio-Gnostics? Okay,
Yes.
which basically it's helio-gnosis, which means knowers of the sun. In fact, in 325 AD, when Constantine united everything, after he died, he had a nephew named Julian the Apostate that went around trying to bring people back to sun worship. In fact, he was actually killed in battle by someone on his own side. He got an arrow shot through his back.
Damn.
But his own nephew tried to bring everyone back to. They were solar worshippers. They knew that the Bible was If they knew that people were taking it literally right now, they'd have heart attacks.
There's a lot of people who would be rolling around in a grave if they thought, based upon some of the text that they've written, that people, what? This
Yeah,
this wasn't how it was written.
exactly.
Wow. It's again, just to reiterate, it's really a wonderful time to be alive, learning this new information and just experiencing all of this. It is stressful. Don't get it wrong. It's
One of the
nice.
things that I like to say in my first book, one of my main points that I like to say, I'll give it away because it's kind of sweet, is I could say we're the only people in the history of mankind that will ever be able to say the following. We've seen the turn of a century, a millennia, and a zodiac sign.
Yes.
That will never happen again. We've been able to see all three.
Very true. And in between, so much more with the bombardment of the media and daily
Yeah,
events and stuff. It's just like, we don't get a chance for our brain just to settle down and to take in and digest what's happened over the last week. Never mind the day. It's hard. I mean,
right.
before we could unpack the day because events wasn't so. I mean, number one was we wasn't so interconnected, and number two, these strange anomalies that keep on occurring so frequently wasn't happening like that. The most that we would hear on the news is, pardon me, in the 80s, terrorists have taken a plane and have landed it in Libya.
Right.
Or terrorists have taken this plane and maybe they've blown up a plane, but generally they'll hijack a plane, land it somewhere, and there'll be a little siege. That was the majority of the news that we had.
Right.
Now, and the odd famine here, live World Aid and all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
it's just we're totally unsettled on every level. I mean, we're also bombarded with so much increased electrical, um,
5G.
the 5G stuff, the 4G, the 3G, the Bluetooth, the Wi-Fi, we had FM, AM, we got DAB radio. We've got all of these frequencies, and we're structured and tied up in these little boxes. We're in a room, which is a box, which in turn is in a house, which is in a box. And then we come out
Right.
of that box to go up to the other box, which is the bedroom, to lay on a box. We're just boxed in everywhere we go. We get into a car, which is a box, to go to
Right.
work, which is another box. But yet we want to try and get out of the box. it's it's
Yes.
it's the weirdest thing. It's the weirdest thing, but also it's as you've highlighted, to go through a millennia and to luckily see it and to experience it and to be in 2021. Who would have thought it? I mean, I personally thought, Mike, I don't know about you, I thought we'd be flying around in damn cars now.
Well, I don't know. I don't trust people to drive on this planet to begin with, let alone in the air. So
Traffic jams in the air. Can you picture that?
it's ridiculous. What if you run out of gas? Like, you can't.
This is it. This is all Hollywood. This is all Back to the Future shit, man.
Yep. So can I tell people where to
Yes,
gather my stuff?
of course. Throw it out there, sir. Throw it out.
Fantastic. So for all you lovely people across the pond, if you are interested in this conversation, interested in what I talked about, want to go in deeper, I'm on Twitter and Facebook at Micha Dank. You can friend me, follow me, shoot me a message if you have any questions. You can also, if you want my book series, I can send you guys unlocked versions of it, or I can send you, well, it's going to be a little hard to send a physical copy
Of
overseas.
course, of
It's
course.
going to be
Yeah,
more expensive.
yeah, yeah.
So I guess if you guys are over there and you want a digital copy and you'd rather buy it from me then get it through Bezos, then we can definitely work something out. They'll also be unlocked, so you could share them.
Perfect. I'll make sure I have links in the description below to all of what you're mentioning now.
Right, and you can definitely just you can get them off Amazon too. The book series is called Into the Rabbit Hole, and that's exactly what you're going to go down when you read my books.
Guaranteed. Currently on Amazon, they are available on paperback. Beneath the Veils on paperback currently.
Right, and again, if you guys want digital copies, I could send them to you directly.
Perfect. So the options are there. I'll make sure I put the social media below, the Twitter. There's a lot more. We haven't even we've barely scratched the surface on the topic, but trustfully from this conversation, you've got a kind of better understanding, maybe even understanding, and possibly overstanding of what we've been fed, the traditions of men. So if you want to learn some more, if you want to get some more information, and expand your mind a little bit, most definitely check out Micha. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. If you're on the old Facebook, jump on there. He's a very quick responder if you've got questions. And trustfully, everybody has enjoyed the conversation and has also taken a little bit from this, which they can apply. So whether that means, look, I've got to do some more research, and I've got to, or whether.
Look, guys, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, I don't sell anxiety pills. Okay, but I can tell you this: is that if you have any questions, you can reach out to me.
This is it. Two last things before you go, Micha. Have you had fun today?
I've had a great time. It's always good when you're speaking with someone who's knowledgeable.
Thank you very much.
And I hope you've learned something today too.
As I said, most definitely quite a lot. I had a rough idea based upon what I've previously heard you speak about and just previous people talking about the astrology elements of it. But no, you've definitely given me more detail. And that's what it's about. It's the detail, not just an overview of sorts. It's some more detail. Some more meat to get into. So no, most definitely, I thank you very much for your time. I think we've learned quite a bit about, even though it was short, your journey at least to this point.
Right.
Tell us who you are, Micha, but don't tell us your name.
What do you mean? Be a little more specific.
I do get some guess with this one. So give me some attributes that would best describe you.
I'm just a bottomless pit of learning. What I do is I take everything I've ever learned that I find interesting, and then I write it all down, and then I take the best of the best stuff and I've put it in a book series. And that's what I continue to do. That's what I'm going to leave behind when I go into my robot body. I'm gonna leave this all behind with my book series, which hopefully people will start to read.
Well,
I mean, they have. It's been doing well, but I meant overseas.
It will most definitely, based upon the podcast runs you're doing, and the exposure you're getting, and also most definitely, and most importantly, the content of what you're of what you're putting together and have put together. It's only a matter of time. Only a matter of time, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and most definitely share.